Alrighty, this is Bob, aka Zeal. This is a little bit of an experiment. In the past I've done tutorial videos and things. What I'd like to try is more of a streaming style, just recording my workflow. I may or may not edit this, I may or may not put it up. But I do know I have enjoyed myself. I've enjoyed watching other people work and have learned things from it. So I have a real world problem in front of me, and I'm just gonna record myself actually working in Max, building something. So here's the problem, right? We have a video here. I have a system, and the system takes in a MIDI file, and it then turns that MIDI file into frames for an animation, which I'm then turning into a video file using FFmpeg and synchronizing it with audio. So this is designing an automated workflow for producing video from MIDI files and associated wave files to create short video loops. So this is the video loop that I have at the moment. So it's working pretty good, but there is a problem that I need to solve, and that is the MIDI coming in is polyphonic, but the image is monophonic. That is to say, this is sort of a visual representation of a drum pad, right? And sometimes two MIDI notes come in at the same time, but my patch as it currently stands only visualizes one of those MIDI notes. So that is the problem that I am about to solve, hopefully. I'm pretty confident that I can solve it. So exactly how I do that, let's find out. Here's my patch. It's a little bit of a mess, but it's a work in progress. So I've got a go button up here. The go button first loads in a MIDI file, and I'm using the seek object to read that MIDI file, and then I'm manually stepping through that MIDI file in ticks. There's 24 ticks a beat, and all the way through the MIDI file. And then I'm using some jit.pix objects to create a low resolution visualization of that MIDI file. And the part of the patch in question is this part here, this jit.pix. This is my main visualizing jit.pix. And I am bringing in the notes. I'm then converting them into a cell position in X and Y using these two operators here. So this is giving me something like 0, 0 for in this case I think the top left cell, and then 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, etc. So the problem is, as I get MIDI notes in, I'll send a note. I might say like note 1, 1. And then that will set that note, and then I'll send another note. It'll get another MIDI note, and it'll be like note 2, 1, and then it'll set that MIDI note, but it'll turn the rest of them off. And then after setting the notes, I send another bang to render the frame. So what I need to do is be able to send in the current state of the entire frame as a single message in Gen. Here's my Gen patch currently. So I'm sending in basically a note parameter. This is the problem that I have. I'm sending in a note parameter with basically a cell position, and then every time it receives a message, immediately we're sending a bang. So it's overriding. Sorry, I should say it receives a note message, then it might receive another note message for a polyphonic thing, then it will send a bang. So it's overriding previous note messages. So my solution is, I think, is to use is to convert these cell positions from decimal to binary, so I can send in a single number which will tell me the state of all of 4 cells. So I can send in a number between 1 and 6, 0 and 15, and that will tell me the combination of cells that are currently down. The way this works, we've got these cells 0, 1, and 2. 0, 1, 2, and 3. These are the cells. And we want to send, and these cells can either be on or off. And so I want a single number to be able to tell me which of these toggles are on or off. In binary, the way that we do that is we give each of these toggles a number, and then we add all of those numbers up, and then we get a particular value, and that value will tell us what combination of toggles are down. So in practice, what we end up with is 0. Actually, this cell will be 1. This cell will be 2. This cell will be 4. And this cell will be 8. And so if we have a particular combination of cells to get cells down, say we've got these 2 cells down, we add 1 and 4, and that gives us the number 5. And this number, 5, only correlates to these two cells being down. So we need to take this number and pull it back apart and turn it back into decimal numbers to figure this out. So my plan is to be able to send in a single vector, which is a collection of 4 numbers, and then each of those 4 numbers will relate to one row in this grid. So we'll have row 0, row 1, row 2, 1, 3, and each of those will have a number between 0 and 15, and 0 and 16. Maybe I need to go up to 16. We'll find out. We'll find out. Hey, and then I should be able to send in a single message, and then see that in jit.pix, figure out which cells need to be down. Alrighty. So I'm just going to try and figure that out. Basically, where I've gotten up to is I've taken my message, which I'm currently composing here, X and Y. So here's my X position and my Y position. Now I'm using a message box here to reverse those 2 values. So now I've got my Y position first, and then I'm routing out based on Y. So Y is up and down. So I'm routing out 0, 1, 2, and 3. Actually 0, 1, 2, and 3. And that's giving me rows basically. So I'm getting, this will give me a note message per row. And then I built this little setup here. So before each frame, I'm going to clear this accumulate object, and then I'm going to send numbers into it. And if I send a 0, or let's say I send a 1, you can see I get a 1. If I send another 1 in, I'll send actually if I send different numbers, so it actually sends something. So then I'll send in a 5. You can see it's accumulating those numbers and giving me a total, which is what I want. But I'm going to need to turn that into binary. So we're going to assume that 0 is off. So I think what I need to do is add 1 to this number coming in. Let's test it out, hey? So I've got an integer here. Let's just use cells. So I'll say cell 0, 1, 2, 3. And then that was Control-Shift-A to auto-align those. And so if I'm a 0, I'm going to bang this. If I'm 1, I'll bang this. 2, we'll bang this. 3, we'll bang this. Okay. Then I'll put that in here. I'll route this in here. And so now what should happen is as I get notes into my cell, notes into my row, or like row positions on, 0 will send a 1, and that will accumulate. And then if in the same frame, we also receive, for example, like a cell, there we go. So this cell gets activated, it sends out a 0, and that gets turned into a 1 and accumulated. And let's say before the frame is rendered, we also get this cell activating. That's going to send out a 4, and that will get accumulated, and I'll have this number 5 sitting there ready to go, and that's the number that I'll use in my sorry, that would have been this cell here for 4. That's the number that I'll use in JIT-Pix. We'll then sort of pull that back apart and figure out which cells are on or off. I think that'll work. So I'm going to create a new message, and this will be, actually no, I'm not. I'm going to stick all of these together. So I need to do this 4 times. Let's put it into a message box at the moment so I can do this. We'll call it binary accumulator. Binary accumulator. I'll add that to my list of wrapper names. Okay. Now, this is quite different to what I normally do with a tutorial, because a lot of this is sort of, I'm just making this work right now, right? I'm not making my patch as tidy as I normally would. So with these binary accumulators, best practice would be to save these as a separate patch and then bring them in as an abstraction, because that means if I make a change in one of these patches, that's automatically propagated throughout the rest of them. At the moment, if I make a change in one of these, I've then got to go through this process of copying these binary accumulators again. So not best practice, but we'll work with it, hey. So we want to pack all of these together. Actually, it's going to say the best way to do this. Join for at triggers. Let's say at triggers 5, and that should give us all cold inlets. So I'm just making my number here, and I'll bang it out later. So this is going to give me 1 number per row. 1 binary number per row, each storing the active cells of that row encoded as binary, I think. Let's run it, hey? We'll run it to test. This is probably a good thing to do. So we're doing the same list. We're getting a bang. And we're storing this. That's pre-tick. Then tick comes through. Bang. This is it. That's our render tick. Or render pane. This is re-render. Got lots of sends and receives floating around the place here as well. Let's call this S post tick, because I've got a pre-tick and I've got a post tick. Let's say post tick. I also like to color my sends and receives, just so I can very quickly, I can see this is pre-tick, this is post-tick, cool. The reason I got pre-tick and post-tick is because I'm running into a trigger and I'm going pre-tick bang, then I'm running a tick, which is spitting out that MIDI note, and then I've got a post-tick for rendering that information. Okay, post-tick. And let's Bang. Locate melody too. That's fine. Okay. I'm going to make sure that I am not writing, and I'm going to hit go. Cool. Got a 4, 1. If we see something bigger than 4, that probably means it's working. So far, we're not. Oh! I think I saw something. We'll have to go back up and find it. This sort of. Could it be that this is working? I think, like. So we're working with a MIDI file here. It's polyphonic, but I don't know if I quantized it. You can use detonate. Detonate. Here's my MIDI track. Girl, let's go. Ah, that's really not helpful. Oh, there we go. 2-finger drag. Okay, we definitely have some polyphony happening here, right? So like we can zoom in. Look at that, 3 notes all at the same time, and my bottom note is this. 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Oh, that's my start bottom note. Bottom note seems to be 36. I thought I constrained my MIDI notes in the track exporting it. I actually exported this from Ableton. Ableton's got a bit of a quirk. When you export MIDI files, it doesn't give you the full length, like from a clip, it doesn't give you the full length of the MIDI file. It stops the last MIDI message. So that's when your last note finishes. And so when you play it back in something like Max, you need to know how long it goes for, or like how long you're supposed to loop, and then you gotta like add in a little bit of extra. Okie doke. Actually, I'll leave that there. So we know our bottom note is 36. I think this is working. What we should test is if my note messages are currently working. So I've got a note message that looks like this. And list and bang. So if I put a note message in, that should, I'll turn this into, I'll make a little UI and we'll go test it. So we'll say $1, $2. I. Oh, and pack. Or park, as I heard someone call it, which I love, because then you get pack and park. Okay, let's have these. So now I've got an X and a Y, and I should be able to sort of turn pixels on and off with these. 0 is up the top. Good to know. So I didn't seem to be getting 3. 3 does work. Ding. This is one of those backwaters of Max. And begin. Let's go here. So we are note this black key here. 48, 49, 50, 51 seems to be our top note. If we put 51 into here, let's see what happens. Okay, so they're definitely coming in. I think I've got multiple problems here. One zero. 1 1 bad number. It's probably something else. Right. Alrighty. There's too much going on here. I think what I'm going to do is simplify this patch. So I'm going to work on a subsection of the patch. I have one thing that I do often is I'll set my projects up as Git repositories and then commit as I go along, which means I can always roll back. I don't need to be worried about breaking things, at least not as worried as I might otherwise need to be. So what I'm going to do is just copy the parts of the patch that I want to work on, and then I'm going to create a new patch and work in that. So what I would like to take is I'd like to work from the point of getting my cell numbers in to the point of outputting an image. And if I can get that going, I can copy that in here easily enough. So that's basically here. Let's make I'll make another pack object, and I'll put some I plug them in here, plug that in here, and I'm going to copy all of this. Copy. I'm going to save this. Why not? Close, make a new patch. Alrighty. Simpler. Make sure this still works. Note 00. Note 00 works. And I was using note -1 -1 as a way of clearing, and that works too. I will need to change that logic, I think. So I'm going to create a number in my pack. I'm going to send it out as a list. And then I'm going to bang out my, actually, banging out needs to be a separate event. So that what I'm simulating here is my MIDI file coming in. It sending multiple notes and then a render being sent, a render bang being sent later. So that'll be here. Whew. And then we'll print, I'll just use the message box for this, that'll be fine. So let's run a little experiment. Let's say, what should we say? Let's say nothing has happened. What am I banging out? 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And I do have a reset in here as well, pre-tick. Pre-tick will let me reset this, so we can S pre-tick. So here's the order of events, right? We'll sort of structure it top to bottom. First we get a pre-tick. This resets the vector that I'm creating. Then we create our vector, so that will be simulating multiple MIDI notes coming in, building the vector, and then we get a render bang, essentially. So let's say we get cell 1, 1, 1, 1, and cell 3, 3, 3, 3. 1, 1 should be a number here in our second spot in our vector, and 3, 3 should be a number here as a spot in our vector, and I think that should be a 2 and a 4. Can I target? What I think I need to make sure that I can actually target this row, which would be row 0. So we'll pre-tick, say row 0, 0, 0. So this should be a 1 in the first cell. I hit that again. Let's just send this directly in. That's a 1 in the first cell. That's right. And so first row again, let's add 1 to that. That 1 should be turned into a 2 and it should accumulate, so that should now be 3. And it is. Let's now send a 2 into the second row, so that'll be a 1, 1. And it is. And we'll add to that a 3, which will get turned into a 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. So now we should have 6 in the second row. Is my maths wrong or is my patching wrong? 3 is an 8. Wish I could rewind that immediately. Let's assume that's working. Let's assume that's working. And then let's target. So 3 is actually getting turned into 8. So let's target now row 3 with a 3. And that should give me a 3, 3. That should put an 8 in the 4th cell. I think it's working. So we should be able to clear. Okay. Send a 3 into the last cell. Okay. And then if we clear, and let's say send a, well, this will send a 3 into the first, that'll send an 8 into the first cell. Okay, we're working. I'm pretty confident that's working. So, okay, cool. I think what I then need to look at is in our jit.pix object. So now we've got a vector of binary numbers coming in. So when I'm working in code, often what I like to do is specify my interface first. In Max, like that's actually a really nice way to work on certain projects as well. Like if you're developing like a something that has a graphical user interface, what's really nice about Max is you can build the interface, make it look the way you want, and be like, okay, I want it to do this, and then you work on the functionality afterwards. I know that's a pattern that's used in mobile development as well, but there's something about Max where it's like, you know, your UI is part of your program. That slider isn't just a slider; it's an object. In Gen, we're working at a little bit more of an abstracted out level. So when we're talking about like I would like to work in the same way of specifying an interface first, but we're not really specifying graphical user interfaces here. I'm specifying the interface that I want to communicate with this Gen object. And so the way that I'm going to do that is by creating my parameter. My parameter is going to be, what should we call it? Do need to give it a name. It is active nodes. I'm going to call it rows. Rows is going to be a vector. It's going to be a vector of rows, 0, 1, 2, 3. Each of those are going to have a number. That number needs to be converted from binary to decimal to figure out where in the row it is, which rows are active. Whew, it's going to be hairy. So we're going to start with rows of 0, 0, 0, 0. Now, if I send in a 1, I want the first cell to be active. If I send in a 2, I want the second cell to be active. If I send in a 3, I want the first and the second cell to be active. That's how I want this to work. This is the kind of thing that would probably be easy using CodeBox. But I kind of like using noodles. We're in Max. Let's embrace the noodles. Be wrapped in a noodly embrace. Alrighty. So a good way to start, what would be a good way to start? A good way to start would be getting one row to work. I'm also going to just copy this jit.pix for reference, because I'm going to start making some pretty serious changes. Okay. This second part of the patch here is a little bit of feedback. It's unrelated to our cell activation. So I'm just putting that out of the way. Begun. Okay. So my parameters coming in. Let's swizz we'll swizz in RGB. So swizz will take one of the elements of the vector. If I swizz out R, that's going to be the first element in my vector. Then I can swizz out G, B, A. Right, and so that's a way of me accessing my rows. I think we will need to do this row at a time. Codebox probably would make this easier. Okay, there are my rows. Now, I haven't done binary to decimal conversion in a way. I wonder if there's an object that just does it. That'd be great. There. Tag to red. Expression. Math. If you're really good with maths, or even just moderately good, this is probably something you do all the time, but I've forgotten exactly how to do it. I'll need to figure it out again. Or look it up. Let's look it up, eh? Let's look it up. We want to look up binary to decimal formula. Okay. This isn't the kind of decimal that we're talking about. What kind of decimal are we talking about? So I don't have enough math to know. This isn't exactly binary. What do we call it? Binary encoded? Decimal? Binary coded decimal. That doesn't look right. Decimal number? Go away. No, this looks too mathy. I have done this before. Binary weight, binary power. Ah, yeah, we use powers. Oh, let's just see if we can. Seems like binary is getting in my way. Encoding numbers power of 2. Encoding numbers power of 2. Oh god, maybe I'm just gonna figure it out. Maybe I just gotta figure it out. Okay, so let's say this. Okay, this is the approach I'd normally take, right? I would write out the numbers, sort of like what I've done here. I'd write out numbers, and then I'd write out the number that I want to turn into that number, and sort of create a chart, and then figure out the formula that converts one number into the other number. I'm going to come back to this. All right. Okay, so normally I would have taken a break, gone for a shop, figured it out, but actually what I did was I changed my search term to encoding multiple booleans as an int. So that's basically what we want to do. We've got lots of flags. We want to store them all in an integer. And the terminology that I was missing is bit packing. So this is called bit packing, where you pack things as bits into an integer and then unpack them. And I know I've done this in the past in Max. I don't know if I knew it was called bit packing, but this is what bitwise operators are used for. I'm not particularly familiar with bitwise operators. I have seen them around the place. And I just had a poke around. I don't know if I can do this in Gen. So I think I might need to take an alternative approach. I reckon what I'm going to do is, instead of sending in a single parameter, I mean, other ways I could do this, I could put this in as a matrix. That's something I hadn't thought about. Like, clear a matrix, set a cell on the matrix, then use this operator as a way of, then use gen to sort of pass that matrix. That would probably be a more gen native way to do it. That's probably a good way to do it. That's probably a good way to do it. So what if we have we'll make a new JIT matrix. We'll keep it as a 4-character matrix just to keep things consistent. 4 planes of 0 to 255, and we want a matrix of 4 by 4. And then we'll set cells in this matrix. Is this a better way to do it? Have we figured it out? Make a little P window. We're going to use the message set cell, and then set cell, we give it a position, so we could say like 0, 0, and then we give it a value, and we'll say the value is 255, 255, 255, 255. I think this will automate. I might need to bang to make that work. There we go. So now we've got 4 cells. So now on pre-tick, what we might do is clear it with a set all message. 0, 0, 0, 0. So that'll be on pre-tick. I reckon this will work, and this will have been a bit of an adventure, a bit of a detour, so we can get rid of this. Get rid of that. Okay, and then we're going to, I'm actually going to copy this, paste it here. I'm going to ditch my accumulator, my lovingly made binary accumulator, which is actually a bit packer now. Now it should be called bit packer, so we'll update my wrapper name as well. Bit packer is probably better. Okay, so we can make a coordinate here. Let's set a cell of 3 and 3, and then oh yeah, this is great. So I'll then say $1, $2. So we create our cell, we'll bang that in, and then let's create another one while we're at it. Say the other row, make them diagonal. Donk. And then bang that out. Hoop, there we go. Now we've stored that as a matrix, we can pass it in. This is going to be, this will be operating on 3 matrices now. One will be a feedback matrix, which is down here. But we're going to need another inlet. Yeah, we'll need another inlet. At the moment, this in1 is actually just sort of giving it a matrix on which to work. So then you get, that gives you your like dimensions, your plane count, and your data type. So that's why I've got this inlet here, which is sort of a straggler. I think I gotta go for a shop and think about it. I'll be back. Okay, so I just put the go for a grocery shop technique into practice, and it worked. It worked. I think when patching, when doing any sort of programming, it's really easy to get fixated on lower level problems and lose sight of the goal. And I think this approach that I started patching up in Gen here would work. I think this would work fine. And this approach here of sending in the cell or the current node on messages as a matrix is definitely the right thing to do. So there are a couple of things that I've learned already. One, I learned the term bit packing, and have sort of bitwise operations on my to-do list of looking into a little bit more. I think being able to implement bitwise operations in Gen would be super handy for passing in large arrays of bools or different parameters. I learned that that sending in, storing data in matrices and sending that into jit.gen is a really good way of passing in information as well. But something that sort of that wasn't top of mind as I was putting this together was like, hey, you're storing these node on values in a cell, in a matrices that looks pretty much the way that I want it to look. So I'll just store one more of these. 3. So let's say we'll go 3 and 3. Store this. Bang this. So right, if cell 2, 2 and 3, 3 are on, this is pretty much what I want my grid to look like. It's just I've got a border around. I've sort of got this border around the outside. So I'm going to go back to my other patch. There we go. And the sort of data flow or the video processing signal path in this patch is I create my grid. I'm actually creating my grid and creating pretty much what I want to be looking at. Let's turn this off, turn this on, hit go, and give it some colors so we can see. All right. So what is coming out of this jit.pix is pretty much the matrix that I want to look at, like this. But I've got my borders in already, and then I've got a little bit of feedback on it, right? But I've got another jit.pix here, which is actually doing the same thing with the borders. I'm putting an overlay, a border overlay, and then I'm coloring it. So, and that's using what is essentially like an over blend mode. So I could just scale up the matrix that I was making before. Oh no, did I not save that? We'll have to make it again, but that's fine. I could just scale up that matrices, and I'm overlaying a border over the top of it later anyway. So I don't even need to do any of this nonsense. I can just pass in, I can just set the cells and bang that matrices into the jit.pix, which is just, all that's going to be doing now is adding feedback to give the notes that sort of trail. So here's all of this. Here's my binary accumulator, which should have been called a bit packer. So I can get rid of that. Don't really need this. So let's have a look at what my patch is doing at the moment. We've got a pre-tick and a post-tick. Pre-tick, we store -1, 1 in here. That's fine. But what we might want to do instead is pre-tick. We'll have to rebuild what I just built. We're going to make another matrices, jit.matrix. But this is going to be 4 planes, characters, 4x4. And first we're going to set all to 0, 0, 0, 0. So that'll be pre-tick. So before we visualize any of these MIDI notes, we're going to clear my matrices. And I'm going to set through to 0, which I might not actually need that, but what that means is if you send matrices data into it, then it's not going to forward, it's not going to output. It lets you sort of explicitly render the frame, which is what I want to do, because I want to set all of these cells and then output it. I don't think I actually need it, but it's there. So here we're getting my cell position in X and Y. So let's create a message box and say set cell $1, $2 value 255 255 255 255. Okay. So we're going to set all of those cells like so. Fall off stays there. Do we need any of this? I don't think so. List bang. I think I can actually just... I'm going to need to scale it up. I think I need to turn interpolation off. So interpolation, what interpolation does is if you're scaling up an image, say you've only got like 4 pixels, it'll take, and you're scaling it up, maybe you're like quadrupling the size. It'll take the first pixel and then it'll look at the next pixel across, and it'll sort of insert 4 pixels in there as it scales up, and then it'll smoothly transition. So you end up getting sort of like a blurring, sort of, sometimes you might hear it described as like anti-aliasing, slightly different thing, but similar visual effect where you get this blurring as you scale things up. In this case, I want really hard edges. I want everything to be rectangular. We're building square edge cells. I want to keep those cells square, so I'll leave the I'll set the interp flag to 0. And then post tick, we will bang this into here. Now I don't need this. And this is only going to be feedback now. So we're going to take, what do you want? You're checking. We're just going to add these together. This is my previous frame here, and I am subtracting an amount from that frame, and I'm setting that amount with my fall off, with this parameter I've called fall off. And then I'm going to add that slightly darkened previous frame to my current frame. And then let's see if that works. No. We're going to pack set cell. You banging? You banging? Post tick bang. Let's create a couple of P windows, see what's going on. Like you always get to this point where you're like, does that work? And you get this little feeling like maybe it'll just work. Sometimes it does, and that is great. We'll get there. Let's turn this on again, check it out. Okay, this one's working, this one isn't. Because I've got through set to 0. Through's set through back to 1. There we go. Hit go again. Yes! We're still monophonic. We're still monophonic. Nope, that was one. Gotta watch that again. Okay, I'm going to have something to eat. I'll come back to it. Okay, so I think we're pretty close. But it does appear that this isn't doing having the monophonic behavior that I would have hoped. So let's might slow it down a little bit. Let's do 500. I'm just going to slow this down so I can see it a little bit better. Yeah, we're still only getting one. Hey, it does make me wonder if like something else is wrong. Speed it back up. Let's get back up closer to real time. Maybe so 660 should be sort of half time. And let's add our fall off to our presentation window. Still monophonic. And these are looking, I'm saying monophonic, but what I mean is there's only one cell visible. Let's print out the messages that are coming out. I feel like I need to step through. This sequence. That's one of the downsides about Seek, is it's not really a timeline per se. It only plays back in sequence. So you can't sort of scrub to a particular spot. You need to step through, which is the same in PD, same object. So generally the way that you might get around that is like storing all of the node information into a text object or a call object or a queue list object. I think there's another one actually that I came across the other day. Meter, that looked pretty cool. I haven't used this before, but Meter looks like a great way of recording data, recording like time, recording time-based like messages, MIDI messages, things like that. You can pick a different point. I could probably set that up. I really don't want to dive into that sort of development at the moment. I really just want to test this patch. So it does really look like on that first tick I should be getting 3 numbers. Let's go all the way back to, Seek. We're going to come out of MIDI pass. I'm running it through strip note. Let's just do a MIDI. Let's go from the MIDI pass. So we'll get note ons and offs. I'm going to reset and I'm going to manually tick. Okay. Second tick, we've got 3 notes that should be coming on. Let's have a look at our jet.matrix. There. So those messages are definitely getting through to here post tick. So the question is why when I play this back, I don't see those 3 notes immediately. It means this part of the patch is working, but there's like a sequencing issue. I remember when I started developing this, one of the first things that I did was make a little node accumulator similar to that, similar to the Bitpacker that I was building before, but it would store all of the node on messages and as a list, and then bang that out and then clear the list. I think I was using a couple of like ZL join objects, because I did sort of foresee this as being a potential issue, but this should work, right? I don't really see why this shouldn't work. What was interesting here is when okay, we'll bang from further up. We'll bang up here. We'll actually hit this bang. So let's go back. And I'll bring this bang out. This one. Let's make a little thing. We'll say step. Right. Right there. That was interesting. So watching the print object, there was a delay. Where's my print object? Where's my print object coming from? At the moment it's coming from my MIDI pass. But there was a delay from those second node off messages. I think there might be a quirk to the seek object. Maybe I do need to store this in a text list. Maybe I need to store all of this in a text and then step through the text, which is a pain to have to do that, but it seems like that might be what I need to do. Step again, step, 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 step. I've only got one note, and I've got 3 here. And now if I bang this, there they are. There's a sequencing issue. So sequence isn't finishing sending out the messages. It's only sending out the first message before moving on to the next object. I wonder if this is a bug. Max order of operations is right to left, top to bottom, and it's depth first. So generally the way things should work is if you've got a sequence of objects, and say you've got like a trigger object here, right? We've got trigger, bang, bang. Trigger, bang, bang, bang. So we're going to run right to left. And it's going to bang, it's going to go to pre-tick, and then pre-tick's going to do all this stuff, and it's going to run all the way down that pre-tick chain till it gets to the end, it can't do anything, and then it's going to come back to this bang, and then it'll go down this tick chain, and go tick, tick, tick. Everything that's sort of causal from that event will happen, and then we'll come back up to this bang. So it should go all the way down that chain. But what seems to be happening is that I'm sending a tick to sequence. What I would hope would happen is that sequence would send out all of its information. Everything that's relevant to that tick. And then it would move on to the next bang. After all of this, like it could have been, it seems like it's the case that there were multiple issues with my patch, right? So it was true that the previous gen setup would only display things monophonically. I think I've got a meeting to get to. I might need to come back to this, but it seems like what I'm going to need to do is store all of my sequence in a list and then step through that list rather than stepping through sequence. Okay. And looking at this now, this is actually So when I started working on this, I remember that I was using a bag object initially. So or at least at one point I tried using a bag object. So I'd store all of the MIDI notes in a bag object, and then I wanted to bang them out as a list. So every tick, I wanted to store all of the notes that were relevant to this tick and bang them out. I was trying to use a bag object to do that, but I kept getting this weird behavior. Now what I think might have been happening is that it's this sequencing problem that seek is loading in this file, and as I was ticking through that file, it wouldn't have been storing all of the notes in bag because it wasn't going depth first. So what I really need to do is get this MIDI file into a text message. But now maybe I'm thinking like I need to convert the MIDI. Maybe I need to convert the MIDI file with another program or another. It seems like this is the workaround that's going to be required for this is quite annoying. Okay, hey, I got a way to test this. That looked like it might have been maybe like 10, 20 milliseconds between these events. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put a delay on my post-tick bang, and then I'm going to slow my metronome right down. So let's put a delay, like a pretty big delay. Let's go 100 milliseconds. Slow my metro down to 200. Let's hit go and see if we get what we expect. And my fall off I'll set to 0.2. We'll set this much lower. And set all, and bang, 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 bang. Okay. Let's hit go and see what happens. There we go. Look at that. My fall off isn't working, but that's okay. Higher is faster. There it is. Look at that. Did we just find a bug? So the plan with this, like this is an NFT project that I'm working on here, and what I want to be able to do is automate like perhaps hundreds, perhaps thousands of MIDI files and associated WAV files and convert them all to video to create a large quantity of unique looping MP4s. So efficiency is important here because if I want to scale this up, I need to be able to run this as quickly as I can. And like a few slowdowns here and there aren't too bad, but really, let's see how fast we can get this to go. Hey, that's probably a good thing. So what if we make our, does delay pause execution? Odds bang, so this object uses the max time format saying they don't specify any minutes set. What I'm wondering is if this is like pauses execution in max. I wouldn't imagine so. Defer low, this incoming message at the tail low priority queue. This is unlike the defer object. Yeah, let's have a look at defer. Defers the output of all messages sent through it to the lower priority main thread. This is most applicable when using overdrive mode. Okay, I need to read up a little bit more in overdrive mode. Is overdrive mode on? Options. It is. Set this back. Delay. I've taken my delay off of that bang. Let's it go. Not quite. Okay. I was wondering if maybe like we'll set a delay of just 1 millisecond, hey? Let's see if that's enough. Here's what we should do. I'll keep turning this up until I can see it. So I'll put this into my okay. I got it. 1 millisecond's enough. Look at that. Oh my god. So I should. Okay, how fast can we run it? Can we run this at 10? There goes. All right. All right. We've got a working solution. It's not ideal, but we've got a working solution. Can I delay by like half a millisecond? Will you work? Do you just need some sort of delay? Alright, half a millisecond works. I don't actually know how low. Never delayed anything. Less than that. Let's try this again. Okay, 0.01. Add a bunch of zeros. Don't actually know what the resolution is. It just needs something. Any sort of delay. Wow. Okay. There's a delay of 0. There's a delay of 0. Can I actually give this a delay of 0? It's like, so I think there must be something going on. There must be something going under the hood as far as like execution flow goes. I'd like, if there are any like cycling engineers stumbling across this, I'll post something on the forums because I'd really like to know what's going on there. But all right. I'm going to leave this here for the moment. We can just watch this do its thing one more time. It's very nice. It's very nice. And I'll post more on my progress of this. This was actually pretty enjoyable to document stumbling across some of the quirks in Max because, you know, like we were looking at here, we've got detonate, we've got meter, coal, text object. This Max is so big. It is enormous. And as you're working in Max, sometimes you can get into some murky waters, and it's like, maybe someone hasn't really been here, been in these parts for some time, and there are a couple of cobwebs floating around. So, or maybe there's, you know, like a technical reason for the behavior I'm seeing here. So, look at that, what an adventure. Let's recap. What did we learn? A lesson that I'm always learning is that there's always a multitude of ways to solve a problem, and it's good to keep in the back of your mind like a high level overview of what you're trying to achieve and try and decide when it's the best time to switch strategy. So like we looked at a few different approaches there that we could have used in the JIT.pix object to set those cells. One was, I think I was playing around with the idea of sending in multiple parameters per row. I was looking at bit packing and then unpacking those bits to be able to send multiple flags through a single integer. I looked at using a jitter matrix, storing my note information, my active node information in that matrix, then resampling that matrix in jit.pix. And then using the classic go for a grocery shop technique, I realized that, well, storing notes in a matrix like that is pretty much what I want to visualize anyway. I can just scale it up and mask it. I'll get exactly the same result. So that's the result. That's the direction we ended up taking. A little bit of a circuitous route, but there are some things that we learned along the way. The other thing that is it's a lesson that I've learned more than once and will continue to learn, that I'm sure often there can be more than one thing that is wrong. So my jit.pix object wasn't working correctly, but neither was the execution flow of the application. And so debugging revealed that, no, there's another problem there. Cool. Great. So I think what I'll do is I'll like edit out most of the nonsense out of this video, and then the 30 seconds that's left, I'll put up on YouTube. If you've gotten this far, let me know. Like, I'm interested in what sort of content I can put out that's useful for people. It's difficult for me to put together sort of regular tutorials at the moment. It's hard to find the time to like write them and edit them. As I'm not teaching this semester, so normally I'd be putting up things that are associated with classes that I'm teaching. Now this semester I'm not doing that, so this is a bit of an experiment. Let me know if it's useful. Let me know if you've come across anything hiding in the backwaters of Max, or if you have any tips about bit packing in Max. That would be an interesting technique. I'd love to know how to implement that in Gen. I reckon that would be really useful for passing in a lot of parameters into Gen in a manageable way. Cool. Bye.